So my name is Brad Burkle. I'm with JScrambler, and I've been in AppSec since about 2014. I've been in security since about 2000. Pretty much, I'm kind of a startup junkie, for better or worse. So I've had a lot of different runs. And today we're going to focus on a particular problem in web applications. I know the whole supply chain story is one of those kind of big areas right now, and we're going to look specifically how that impacts your web applications. There's obviously been a massive shift over the past few years, and we're going to get into all the problems, what's wrong with it, of course, and we're going to keep piling them on, but we are going to get to some approaches that you can take to deal with this. And so my hope is that you leave this afternoon more educated about what some of the problems are, some of the approaches, and thank you all for coming here instead of taking a nap right after lunch. So let's start in. And to start, let's do a little history lesson here. So long ago, in a faraway land, applications resided on a server. And this server was inside the perimeter. You had firewalls, WAFs, RAS, protecting all that. Sounds like a really great security environment, right? Well, kind of, but what was on the servers was junk. It wasn't really usable, and the people wanted to start marketing. People wanted to use those servers to become more serious about driving revenue in the web apps. DevOps got pulled along to do things faster. So along comes JavaScript. JavaScript, very feature-rich, and it exploded over the past 10 years. And one of the nice things about it, not only is it very feature-rich to work with, but over time, a lot more software libraries and tools emerged out there in the third-party marketplace. So people started interacting with a lot of third-party code in their code. Marketing people are exciting. Remember that little marketing guy or gal who you got to ignore 10 years ago? Well, now they have a revenue person who tells security what to do, or more typically what not to do. And DevOps people are now, anybody have any friends in DevOps anymore? No. They don't want you around. So we are going to focus today on what's going on here in the production environment, specifically in the third-party code area, what that means to security teams, what are some of the new challenges, and what are the kind of approaches we can take to deal with this. So, sure you're aware of Magecart, web skimming, these sorts of things. You may not know the largest GDPR fine in history was a Magecart attack for $230 million at British Airways. And what happened in this case is for weeks, a web skimming attack was peeling data off of the credit card page, stealing almost 500,000 records, completely undetected until the breach was discovered, at which point it was considered that British Airways was at serious fault. Now, the interesting thing here, was that their code that had the problem? No. It was a third-party web application that caused a problem. What happened to those guys? I have no clue. Not a lot. Fault was centered on British Airways. So regardless of the source of the code, if we have any kind of transactions we're doing online and we're using a third party for processing the payment, it's still the fault of the person whose website those transactions are happening from. So is that fair? Not really, but is it reality? Yes. And this isn't just British Airways. There's been a variety of others, Delta, Best Buy, Chatroom Hack, Live Nation. This has really been kind of a theme over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's been easy picking for the bad guys to go in there and conduct these attacks. Is my volume still okay, by the way? Cool. Okay. So let's peel back and get into the why this is happening. So one problem is, again, agile environments, code is being released multiple times each month. Some people as much as daily. And DevOps are getting really good at, again, listening to the marketing folks and releasing lots of new features. Lots of scripts are coming and changing constantly. But the security team is still stuck back in the 1 to maybe 2 code reviews per month. And that's a snapshot, per year. And that's a snapshot in time of what's going on. Well, over here, the web applications are changing constantly. So there's really no real-time code reviews going on. Also, a lot of that review is your code. Pen testing is your first-party JavaScript code or whatever you're running, not third-party JavaScript code. So a lot of what's going on out there is just happening without any supervision whatsoever. So that's one problem. And there's more. So modern day web applications now, recent statistics have well over half of all the JavaScripts running on the application, on that web app, are third-party applications. Again, there's so many libraries and different tools out there that it's just convenient. You can release things fast. Many of these are very well known. Google, Facebook, common well-known tools that are constantly being used. So they seem they would be safe. And on average, a web application might have 35 different third-party components. So these people also call other JavaScripts, just like the web applications calling third parties. Those third parties are often calling fourth parties and fifth parties. So every time you add a script, it basically spirals into a larger group of supply chain vendors you're dealing with. And again, no visibility what's happening here. And there's common, some of the examples on this page show various analytics tools, form validation. You've got a chat bot over here. You've got a video player. And what if, for instance, somebody hacked into that video player and started collecting login information off that chat bot? And that hack has happened in the past. So these are the kind of things that could run in the wild without any supervision. So you might say at this point, okay, I'm dealing with this, to a certain extent. First off, I have a WAF. Okay, a WAF is great at detecting connections to the server and stopping things like, server-based SQL injection attacks. Not in the DOM, not at the browser. So your WAF is not dealing with this new range of browser-based attacks that are going on there. And you also might have a RASP. A RASP is really a modern-day WAF. There are also other approaches. So there's one interesting native-based protection on modern-day browsers. So there are security features built into modern-day browsers. Content security policy, sub-resource integrity. I don't know if these are familiar to any of you folks. Okay, some of you. So dev people can go and they can update CSP, assuming they have the latest revision, every single build, and make sure that it's constantly updated, and they can catch a lot of these threats. So is dev want to inject security into their practices? No. A couple talks ago, they talked about that. You got SecOps, not dev doing work. So CSP, unfortunately, it's too much work. Google does it, and 1 or 2 other people, that's it. They've got a massive team. They can do, God bless them for that. So the rest of us are dealing with all these scripts coming in, all at the same power. So whatever page they're on, they have access to everything. They can collect whatever information they want, unless they're configured correctly. They can send stuff out to external domains, and largely, we don't know any of that is going on. Sound pretty rosy at this point? It gets worse. So the principle of least privilege, common security nomenclature here, when you're dealing with access controls and so forth. Somebody new comes in, they come in at the bottom with the least amount of privileges. Does this apply to third-party scripts? No, there's none. So take something like Facebook Pixel, which is used by most websites, their marketing people. It's a well-known way to collect information from ads and tune your ads and collect user statistics. Well-respected script. Well, what if you're a hospital and Facebook Pixel is running on a page where you have patient information? Are you going to feel good about that? Are your compliance people going to feel good? No. So here's a problem where any script having access to everything, even if it's a respected script, can do bad things, let alone if that script were hacked. Now, let's say, so the point here is it would be nice to have some sort of way to make sure that there's a fence around scripts so they don't have access to everything. So let's say, we have a particular customer in our company who actually configured a third-party script they're using in their dev team to debug it real time. It's an important script for them. And they, initially when they installed it, configured it so that it only had access to the appropriate elements because it was on a credit card processing page. So is that safe? Sort of, but over time, no. So what happens is, again, they're constantly doing new builds and configurations can change arbitrarily, or the vendor of the script, in this case, is constantly revving new versions at the browser, so you're not even seeing those new versions, and the configuration changed, and then they had an environment where a third party attempted to access information on the credit card page and sent it off to a drop server. And again, this was detected and stopped, but here is an example where you've got a good script doing the right things, configured correctly, and over time that changed too. Again, the bad guys out there are always looking for new approaches. I even met a few at the dinner last night for speakers. I am a proud owner of a new lock picking kit. I don't know how to use it. I just got instructions not to use it on a lock that I would want to reuse. So as a first step, you want to have obviously some kind of continuous monitoring in place. And first off, an inventory of what scripts are being used on your website. The known ones that you purposefully use, or whether it's your marketing or whoever else, as well as the fourth and fifth party scripts that are called up. Some kind of inventory so that you can, as a security team, at least have visibility what's going on in your environment. And then secondly, you want to see what's being added or changed. So when I put up that slide showing an average of 35 scripts and 31 fourth-party scripts on a web application, if you take snapshots each month, those script counts go up and down. Because again, your marketing folks are constantly tuning the site to try new things, especially in e-commerce type environment. And you want to have some way to deal with what happens when a script changes behavior. It starts accessing information it shouldn't, or sending it somewhere it shouldn't. And then finally, what kind of measures do you have to determine whether scripts are trustworthy or not? And so these are some of the challenges of security professionals in this environment where we're kind of pushed out of band. Leave us alone, we got to work quick, but yet we need to support that type of environment.
Question.
Yeah.
How is when security can't do things on the server to impact change, how is marketing getting code changes on there so easily?
Great point. So I would argue that back in the old days when I started off, the CISO carried a really big hammer, and he or she got things done. Well, now the chief digital officer carries that hammer. And again, especially if you're a retail site or a banking site where now a primary way that you get business is on your web application. Where 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it was secondary, or maybe it was just kind of informational, where now it's primary. So revenue is king. And if you're slowing down my ability to attract customers, and especially, the way the holiday seasons pop up and the users go, if you lose them once, you can lose them forever. And so that's, and if someone else would comment, if you have a different perspective on that.
Is it more just the business wanting it as opposed to them having a backdoor way to literally allow the people they work with to put code on the server? I mean, is engineering still having to ultimately make changes on their behalf, or are they finding a way around that too?
My opinion is that our job has gotten tougher because we've been pushed out of band a bit, especially in web applications, by the business driving the results. I remember, 10 or 15 years ago, everyone decided that DevOps people would learn security coding and that they would implement that, as best practice. And it hasn't happened. Why? Because they don't have time for it. So, agile means quicker, more and more features. Again, a lot of these scripts that marketing are pushing out are, a lot of them are well known, like Google type scripts and so forth. They're trying some other ones. And the fact is, most security people don't know what's running on their web apps. I don't know if anyone would have a different answer. Might be some different kind of thoughts to that. Okay, I think I just went forward a bunch. Oh no, here we go. So, this is a study at a large retailer of ours last Black Friday, and they collected data over a 30-hour period to see what was going on out there in their third-party scripts. And the results were astounding. Now, they had blocking in place, so nothing actually got stolen here, but they found 144,000 data records that multiple third parties had attempted to exfiltrate off of their web application. And a large retailer over Black Friday, 30-hour period, of which 9,000 contained sensitive data that would have been harmful for them. And this number down here, this is from a 2001 or 21 State of the Web report by IBM, where they looked at average cost of any sensitive data record being stolen, $180 per record, and this gets us this $1.6 million number in savings that they determined that they had from having controls in place. Now, the interesting thing here is without visibility, no one would have known anything. So how often is this going on without anyone knowing? Probably a lot. And more than just that record, how many of those customers might leave forever? Again, particularly if you're in some kind of online commerce, you got Amazon up there. I know there's an Amazon speaker, and we're in the Amazon room, so I don't want to. We'll stop there. Thank you. But brick and mortars are going away. This is important. That's the chief digital officer. By the way, I met a chief digital officer at Shop Talk who did a talk, and I went up and introduced myself, and there was a line of salespeople, and the person looked kind of annoyed. And I asked them, are you concerned with losing revenue from people stealing information off your site or redirecting users? The person said yes. And I asked, would you deal with this in your team? He goes, no. Here's my email. I'll put you in touch with our CISO. So that's a real shift in dynamic from, again, the old days where the CISO was kind of king of the kingdom. So anyway, very interesting results from this study. So now we get to the recommendations. And I'll start with kind of a long list, and then we'll peel it down into specifics. But on the left, having first some way to, again, repeating myself, an inventory, and there's different tools out there. They'll provide an inventory of third-party scripts, so you just at least know what you're dealing with. And then, second from the left, we really need to get more exposure from the CISO to get protection of web resources on the CISO's risk register. Just better articulating. I know in AppSec, we've always been kind of fighting upward to get attention, because a lot of people really don't understand what we do. But this is a big one. And this is now becoming, again, part of the revenue, key to the revenue for the organization. So we really need to get more resources, headcount in the companies we work at, as well as the third parties who can provide managed type service resources for us. And then third, we need to consider this is a real-time problem we're dealing with. So just having some way to look at scripts. The actual attacks are happening at the browser, at the user side, outside our perimeter in real time. And we need to have visibility, 24/7 monitoring to see what's really happening. Again, we can have a great snapshot, Black Friday comes, and all the bad stuff happens, and we miss it. And then we've talked about this a few times now. The agile environment is here to stay, and it's going to get faster, and we're not going to become better friends and get inserted in. So how do we work out of band effectively? That's really a key one. What can we do, outside of the kind of critical path of getting code released, but still have intelligence to provide to add counsel that helps these people be successful? That's a key one. Fifth are the compliance requirements in your organization. Obviously, these change by organization. They're getting more stringent, just to throw some more gasoline on the fire. PCI DSS version 4, not sure if you're aware, this spring just came out and said any site that has credit card processing on it, that credit card processing page, you have to have monitoring and some kind of control of all scripts on that page by the start of 2025. So, which isn't too far away, given all the dynamics working on organization. So there are things coming down the pipe that are going to push us to address this sooner than later. And then, second to last, having some sort of way to mitigate or prevent these breaches from occurring in real time. So we haven't really spoke yet about blocking, but some kind of technology to address that. And then finally, here's where we have the nice rainbow, where we catch problems early. Our CISO's happy, we're happy. We're playing more golf or surfing in my case. Last two probably won't happen because there'll be other fires to put out. But the thought is dealing with this as a process to gain access to information and deal with the information in real time. So I want to look at some approaches now to do this. And there are multiple tools out there now that provide inventory. Here's an example of one where you have a look at the scripts, and there's the ability to click on the scripts to see more information. This would be a first start to at least getting some information, what these are. The first recommendation I would have is visibility. And then from here, there are some tools that allow you to drill down a little deeper. So this particular one, I know it's kind of going back and forth, but it's got a list of scripts on the left, and then it's showing one being clicked on, and it's looking at specific data fields. I know it's kind of small, but there's personal data, and there's payment data, and it's looking at particular fields in there, and the ability to look at what fields that script has access to, and what fields they're exfiltrating from. So here's something you could use to go in if something looks suspicious and really see what's happening in real time. This is JScrambler. Yeah. A shameless plug. And I would argue that from a compliance standpoint with the organization, you probably want to make sure if you're using a third-party vendor, they don't see the actual sensitive data either, especially if they have a cloud-type service. You don't want that stripped off, but be able to see the actual types of fields that are being accessed. And then here's where it gets really interesting, and this will be adding controls to fence what particular scripts have access to. So in this example, we have a chatbot. And these are all the different elements on the field or in the page that chatbot has access to. And so first off, there's certain types of things like the DOM, web APIs, it needs to access in order to function correctly. And then so that would be a case where you'd open up access to those completely. And then there's others like cookies or other JavaScript code where it never need access. So there's a case where you can just fence those off. But then there's third set of elements that are more conditional. So for instance, with forms, bless you, the chatbot, you probably don't have access to the username and their email in order to have a better correspondence with that person. But if they have a login field on that email form, you would not want the chatbot to have access to that. So there's a case where you'd fence particular elements within a form. Now, with these type of controls, if the behavior of this script changed, let's say the script itself was hacked from a third-party standpoint, which you can't control, it's outside your environment, and in a way that it's now exfiltrating passwords off that form field, then in the trades, when the hack shows up, it would name the other people who are at fault, and your company wouldn't be on that list. In fact, you might be even pointed out as having controls in place that mitigated that attack, which could become a competitive advantage when it comes to shopping alternatives. So this is a form, again, that also can be applied. If you apply this to every single page, you're putting overload on your environment. But if you only go to the sensitive pages, anywhere where there's, let's say, passwords being inputted, anywhere where there's credit card information being putted, any place where there's login information or payment data. So it can really be 3 or 4 pages per site that you set up these types of rules for. Now the bad guys, in this case, if they do something to a script on one of your pages you don't care about, they're not going to get anything. There's no sensitive data on that page. But if they try on one of your pages again that has sensitive data, they would be prevented. So I want to go ahead and switch and go into a demo at this point. And a little bit cheesy, but we're gonna go with it here. So, oops, demo went away. Okay, this is why I don't do these. Yeah, I just closed it instead of expanding it. Okay, so we're gonna go shopping for shoes. Oops, I am disconnected. Let's see what happened. Should I pull it out and plug it back in? Something's going on. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to go online, and we're going to go shoe shopping. So I want to buy some shoes, which is kind of funny because I usually just wear flip-flops. But I'm going to give this a try. So here I am, and I'm looking at things that are ridiculously priced, notice, which I would never do. Flip-flops cost like 20, 30 bucks. It's the one pair of dress shoes I've had for the last like 5 years. Okay, so I picked some out, and $375. And for some reason, I'm buying 2 pairs, which is $750, or maybe that's $375 per shoe. I'm not sure. But I'm going to go in here and I'm going to fill out, the information, pretty straightforward stuff. I've got my, name and address and phone number and that sort of thing. And then I go to payment page. And again, the normal information we'd see. You can copy the credit card number and try it. But I'm inputting all this in, and I'm going to go to make a payment. And then I'll experience what every user sees, which is confirmation. So great, I'm going to get my shoes. Now, I wouldn't see this next screen, but for the purpose of the demo, we've got attack detected. And we're going to go in and look in this tool, and we're going to see this red spike, something happened. I know that was kind of quick, but we found this particular script that we're zeroing in on, with the red severity at high, and we find out that there's a problem. So we're going to go in and we're going to look at inventory. And just off the top, we see there's 30 scripts on this site from 17 different vendors. And we can scroll down and we can look at the different scripts. We can see how many sections they're in. We can see which ones are active or not. And various information. This is all kind of good here. We can pick one. I think we're going to pick Microsoft Clarity, which is a safe script. And we can look at details about this. And we see there's 2 scripts actually for Microsoft Clarity that are running. We can get an overview of what these scripts do, just because we're probably not going to know. We can see what sections they're in. The product, there's 2 in product pages, payment, so forth. And so now we're going to go into this express ad. So this is a bad one we found. And we're going to see that it's running on a checkout page, so that's not good. And so we know there's a problem there. And we're going to go now into a different dashboard, the sensitive data dashboard. And again, we have some just information up top. But we're going to click on this express ads script, and we're going to look over here and see the different fields that it has access to. So basically just validating that, in the payment side, there are some things that were grayed and some were bold. All those bold ones were payment details. We see here there's form data access, there's network transfer, and we're looking at all the specific details now that this ad is accessing. It should have access to credit card information, and we're seeing it's transferring it out off our website. So definitely not good. So we're going to block this, and in this case, the vendor is providing kind of pre-built policies, and so all you would have to do is just enable or disable by script. And so we're blocking essentially the ability for that script to read or send out payment information. It could still do its other job, because that's not harmful. So now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to buy more shoes. And I'm getting even more expensive ones. So I guess the last ones didn't come, or I don't know. But I got the same information I'm putting in. And I'm even feeling bold, and I'm going to see if the same credit card details work. And let me go back in and see what happens this time. Now we're blocking the nefarious part of the script from executing, which we've essentially fenced. So I'm going to hit make a payment. And now as a user, I see the same exact thing I saw before. From a user standpoint, I didn't know before my credit card details were stolen, but now I know they weren't. And we can go back in, we can see that same event. We can see down here in this case it was blocked. And we can go and look at the specific details on that. We can also see where in the code it was injected. And we can see the specific code in red that was injected. So if we go to our third-party vendor, we can say fix that. But in the meantime, even before they fixed it, we blocked it. So the user experience is identical. The user's not experiencing anything different than they did before. All that's happening is it's blocked, and this tool is providing the security team with details about that block. So now you can go back to your You may decide that it's worth, well, probably the third-party vendor management team is going to want to know. But in this case, it didn't impact anything in your code. So DevOps may or may not want to know. Maybe there's some way you can change it in future revision or not. But the key is that you're running safe. Okay, so one last slide. And basically, what the heck? Oh yeah, sorry, just a bit of a brain problem here. User error. Okay. One last try here. Tell you what. It's not pretty. Why am I not? All right. Not pretty. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, final thoughts. Summarize what we just saw. So, we talked about modern day web applications are truly a mishmash of first and third party code. And by and large, security teams just do not have visibility. They can't keep up with the change of pace to what's going on out there. We talked about a little bit about supply chain attacks, Magecart, web skimmers. They're in the trades constantly, and they're not going away. You know, it's a wide open playground for the bad guys. We talked about common security tools don't address this problem because it occurs at the browser. And those requests are not coming back to your server in most cases, so you're not going to see any of this stuff that's going on. So forget the perimeter. You know, the browser is a perimeter. And we also mentioned there's a couple browser-based tools, CSP and SRI, that can do a lot of this work, but require just constant vigilance and updating in order to keep working. And if they aren't updated, it could impact the user experience as well. We talked about visibility and control as a key, and having a policy in place to prepare for PCI DSS version 4. And we talked about rules-based approaches to basically fencing scripts. So the idea and hope here is that these problems have been demystified a little bit, and we can look at succeeding in this world, not trying to get back into DevOps and insert ourselves into more of their process, but actually running next to them in the next lane over and gathering intelligence and helping them and being, you know, seen as more of a service, and also being able to scale as they scale. As they're moving faster, we can move faster. So that gets us to, are we on time? Oh, I'm way, wow. Yeah.
So JS Scrambler is still another third party, right? So how it sandbox, how we can sandbox this onto products risk from JS Scrambler itself?
Yeah, so she asked a little about, because we're a third party, how do we sandbox this? So there's two products we have. We've been doing JavaScript since the start of time. And our CTO, Pedro Fortuna, is one of the known guys in the industry. So we're very good at obfuscating first-party JavaScript code, first off. We have like 50,000 clients. This service has been around for about 3 years. So we essentially, you would load a widget, and you'd want to load that first. And it's protected with our code integrity obfuscation product. So it's going to be extremely hard to break. And then from there, we're not sandboxing. We're essentially looking at what's occurring in the browser, and you're applying these rules based on those policies that have been set up. So it's very fast. I know there's concerns with performance with some tools. We're not going through that sandboxing.
I have another question. Question on that. So can we locally download? It can be on like a local tool, or it should be on.
Yeah, so she asked if it could be local or, so normally it's served through the cloud. And we don't have access, again, to any of that sensitive data per se. With some of our large financial clients, they want it local, so we will set up an instance locally in that case. It's a little more involved, but we can do that.
You want Mike or?
Yeah, it might be easier for the recording, but I can speak up louder.
Yeah, I hear you.
So you talked about the DevOps side. One way you can go through and make it a little bit easier when they're doing their QA or UAT, have OAuth Stack in there. So the same type of synthetic scripts that they're using for that, basically put in Zap so that they're not having to rewrite, but Zap can grab in, say, those Selenium scripts. And so, using another OAuth flagship product, that makes it a little bit easier there. And one thing that probably most people didn't pick up on, at the very beginning, one of your slides did have /monitoring.js. And if you're not aware of, so you got the Google Analytics for marketing, but then your APM, Application Performance Management team, they're gonna have those monitoring JavaScripts. And depending on how that's configured, that could be sending it back over to a SaaS server. And if that SaaS server has open APIs, then that's another attack vector where having that protection on the JavaScript side, you're preventing the attacker from going to that vendor and using their open APIs. So that's
awesome.
Another consideration when you're looking at JavaScript.
So I might have you respond to the next question. That's good, thank you. Any others?
You're talking about the retail environment. When I worked in retail, we had a moratorium on changes starting before Thanksgiving and through Christmas. And then we had to have somebody who was relatively new volunteer to be on call during Christmas.
Yeah.
For 2 years. And if something had to be changed, like during that shopping week, that pre-Christmas shopping week, you could not change it. It was like, do you want to kill Christmas?
Yeah.
Do you want to be that person?
No, that's right. I mean, we're all going into that lockdown now. I didn't mention too, what kind of web applications would you care about this with? Again, if you have informational sites that really just share some information around the, the company earnings reports, what our products are. Well, it's not, there's no sensitive data, so we really see this. I talked about, shopping a lot and financial. Those are the biggies. Also healthcare, travel industry. Those are some of the ones. There's, again, customer transactions or sensitive data that's being sent.
So does it support mobile and extensions?
Does this tool support mobile native applications? So we have, on the obfuscation side, so we're JavaScript focused from our side. We do a lot also on the protection of the first-party code itself. And our partner right here, Imperium, is joining us. They do the native side there. So we work closely with them on an engineering level, support level. You can buy through either company on that, when you're talking about your own applications. And the reason we do that is everybody tends to have both, native mobile and web-based applications. Some company like financial starts with the web-based, and then they eventually get to mobile. Others start the other way around. So that's your guy right there. Okay.
I guess I have another question. So at the beginning, you mentioned CSP, and you said CSP is difficult, not many folks implement it.
Yeah.
How do you sell the product to folks that do have a strong CSP? What are the advantages of your product in that case?
Yeah. So there's a few people out there. So the advantages would be it's less of their time to be constantly updating it and changing it. We do provide more richness around the visibility than CSP. So some of the inventory information, the sensitive data information is more rich. The idea of fencing scripts is more evolved, and then the ability to see, specifically where the code is injected, what changes it made in the code. We're able to show more detail. But if somebody, well, for instance, we're not going to sell to Google because they are one of the inventors of CSP, and they've got teams of people supporting it, and they do a good job doing it. So in some cases, we can't. So before joining JScrambler, I was with a company called Tala Security for 4 years. And our claim to fame was we automated CSP. We did it for you. And we emerged as kind of a leader in this space, but we ran out of cash at the end of COVID. And then I liked the space. I went and looked at, well, who do I think has the best technology? It was JScrambler, that's why I came here. But it was somewhat more effective in an automated way, but I don't see anybody really adopting it. Again, just because of the pace of change in the agile process. Mm-hmm.
What do you see as best practices, to begin with, right? So this is great if you've got bajillions of scripts out there, but granted I'm playing on easy mode, but we've got one production site and we know what scripts are there and we have CSP and all of that's documented. But what can you do prior to that detection and monitoring to reduce your need for something like this?
So it's a good question. So I would say, first off, how does this kind of fall in your whole risk register? If you're an online platform like an airline or a site where all of your business is done through online transactions, it's probably high. So you want to go deeper. It may not be the case. So first is how critical is this? And then you mentioned the visibility, I would say, is number 2. What scripts are running on my site, and do I have a way to see which ones are changing? And from a security standpoint, I can go do my own research and look at how trusted those scripts are. The Google ones are probably pretty good. And then again, if you're at a place where this is something that you need to put attention into, that's where I'd go into the more advanced tools that allow you to see, what are those scripts accessing, and put together measures to prevent those from doing harm. So I'd take a layered approach depending on how critical the what's the impact of loss. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you. I'll be around for a little bit afterwards. Is there any questions? And thank you for your time.